Hello and welcome. You're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Anusha Soni. Ever since the idea of uniform civil code has been mooted by the Prime Minister at a rally in Bhopal, a storm of sorts has unfolded. You'd remember yesterday there was a meeting by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board that called for an emergency meeting and said that this is not something that they're going to accept. There are various opposition parties and in fact the former allies of the BJP, like the Akalis, who have opposed the idea of a uniform civil code. The utopian idea of a political consensus is being spoken by various political parties. History tells us that ever since the idea of a UCC was introduced in the Constituent Assembly, the issue has been a polarizing one. But the history also tells us that great reformers and leaders like Dr. Ambedkar and India's first Prime Minister and Congress leader Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was staunchly behind the idea of a uniform civil code. In fact, various right-wing organizations that time had opposed this idea. Cut to the politics of today. Some parties have openly supported the idea of a UCC, highlighting that it's the mandate of the Constitution. There are others who are fence-sitters, including the Congress party. While each political party has the right to cater to its vote bank or the interest groups, there cannot be an absolute support to the politics of vote bank. Reforms are often held hostage to influential groups and influential interests. But it's job of the elected representatives to steer the nation in the right direction. Is the politics of vote bank withholding a much-needed reform of personal laws? Our focus on Brass Tacks tonight.
संविधान में भी आप ऐसे देखेंगे तो आर्टिकल 44 इसका समर्थन करती है, तो सैद्धांतिक रूप से हम इसका समर्थन करते हैं।
Party is yet to take a formal position. All I'm doing is quoting the views expressed by Jawaharlal Nehru.
ओबीसी जैसी सोच रखने वाले लोग हैं, उलेमा हैं, उनको दिक्कत होने लगती है। उनके लिए देश सर्वोपरि नहीं है, इसलिए जनता को भ्रमित करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। ऐसे ही ट्रिपल तलाक पे भ्रमित करने की कोशिश की थी।
Well, before we go to our guest, joining me first on the broadcast is the Muslim scholar Maulana Khalid Firangi Mehli. He is joining us on the show. मौलाना साहब, बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया हमसे बात करने के लिए। मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे, प्रधानमंत्री ने एक साफ-साफ बयान दिया है। भोपाल में एक रैली के दौरान, एक पब्लिक इवेंट के दौरान उन्होंने कहा कि देश के पास एक यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड होना चाहिए। एक देश में दो किस्म के विधान नहीं चल सकते। आपकी राय और आपका मत?
देखिए, बुनियादी बात तो ये है कि ये गलतफहमी है अवाम में कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड का ताल्लुक सिर्फ मुसलमानों से है। जितनी भी रिलीजियस कम्युनिटीज़ हैं, सबके अपने पर्सनल लॉज हैं और सब डे टू डे लाइफ में उसी को फॉलो करते हैं। उसी तरीके से मुसलमानों का भी अपना मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ है, उसको फॉलो करते हैं। और आप सब हमसे बेहतर जानती हैं कि मुल्क के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने रिलीजियस फ्रीडम एज अ फंडामेंटल राइट गारंटी की है हर सिटीजन को। तो फंडामेंटल राइट जो है, जाहिर सी बात है, वो आपसे या हमसे किसी कानून के ज़रिए से छीना नहीं जा सकता है। और पर्सनल लॉज जो हैं वो वेरी मच पार्ट ऑफ आवर रिलीजन हैं, जो कि अपने रिलीजियस टेक्स्ट बुक से साबित हैं। इस वजह से हम लोगों का मानना है कि किसी भी किस्म का यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड अपने मुल्क में प्रैक्टिकली इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो सकता है।
आपने संविधान और संविधान के अधिकारों की बात की। संविधान में आर्टिकल 14 भी है जो एक बराबरी का अधिकार देता है। एक सवाल ये भी आता है कि मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ में ऐसे बहुत सारे पक्ष हैं जो कहीं ना कहीं औरतों के खिलाफ भेदभाव करते हैं, जैसे कि पॉलीगमी का एक इशू है, बहुविवाह का एक इशू है जो बार बार उठाया जाता है। ऐसा भी कहा जाता है कि शरीयत में अगर किसी लड़की की उम्र 18 साल से कम की है, एंड इफ द वुमन अटेन्स प्यूबर्टी, इफ द गर्ल अटेन्स प्यूबर्टी, उसकी शादी करना जो है वो जायज है। क्या ये सारे जो ट्रबलसम एस्पेक्ट्स हैं मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ के, कहीं ना कहीं उनको ठीक करने की कोशिश, कानूनन ठीक करने की कोशिश, ये क्यों नहीं करनी चाहिए हमें यूसीसी के तहत?
आप ये देखें कि किस मुस्लिम बोर्ड ने या किसी भी मुस्लिम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने या किसी भी मुस्लिम लीडर ने इस बात की मुखालफत की है कि शादी का एज 18 इयर्स ना हो। 18 इयर्स शादी की एज है, वो तमाम हिंदुस्तानी मानते हैं। एज एन इंडियन सिटीज़न हम लोग भी उसको फॉलो करते हैं। और जहाँ तक इसका ताल्लुक़ है कि औरतों को 4 शादियों का, आप खुद हमें ईमानदारी से बता दीजिए कि एक भी कोई मुसलमान आपका जानने वाला हो जिसने कि इस मुल्क में 4 शादियां की हुई। 4 शादियां तो बड़ी बात है, 1 या 2 शादी करना मुहाल। और इस्लामी शरीयत में 1 से ज़्यादा शादी करने में इतने इफ्स एंड बट्स हैं कि वो प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल आम इंसान के लिए नहीं है कि शरई तौर पर पे वो दूसरी शादी कर सके।
एक सवाल है जो बार बार उठाया जाता है, मेरा अंतिम प्रश्न आपसे, कि अगर संविधान और आपके निजी मजहब में किसी तरीके का टकराव हो, किसी तरीके के विरोधाभास हो, तो किसी भी इंसान को, किसी भी भारतीय नागरिक को किस चीज को चुनना चाहिए, अपने संविधान को या आपकी जो इंडिविजुअल पर्सनल रिलीजियस बिलीफ्स हैं उनको?
देखिए, हमारा मजहब हमें इस बात की तालीम देता है कि आप जिस मुल्क में रहते हैं आपको उस मुल्क के कानून को भी फॉलो करना है। तो लिहाजा हमारे ही संविधान ने, अपने मुल्क के संविधान ने हमें और आप दोनों को यह हक दिया है कि हम अपने मजहब पर पूरी तरीके से अमल करें। इस वजह से ये कहना कि संविधान को फॉलो करें या मजहब को फॉलो करें, संविधान ने हमें कहा है कि यू आर कंप्लीटली फ्री टू प्रोफेस एंड प्रैक्टिस रिलीजन ऑफ योर चॉइस।
मौलाना साहब, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हमसे बात करने के लिए, और आपने अपनी राय हमारे सामने रखी। कहीं ना कहीं सीधे सीधे आप बोल रहे हैं कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड का आइडिया, दैट्स नॉट द प्लॉजिबल आइडिया फॉर द कंट्री एट दिस पॉइंट इन टाइम। वेल, दैट्स नॉट व्हाट द गवर्नमेंट थिंक्स. It has been one of the moot issue that the government has been talking about. It's part of the core agenda of the BJP, and in fact has been a part of their manifesto as well, that UCC and the implementation of it is a constitutional mandate that should be made into a reality. Once again, I reiterate the question that I earlier posted here on Brass Tacks, that is the politics of vote bank withholding the much needed reform of personal law? That's the key question we ask, and taking this question to all our guests who are joining us on the broadcast. We have Sanju Verma, who's the national spokesperson of the BJP. Saira Shah Halim, who's an activist, is also joining us on the broadcast. Zakia Soman and Flavia Agnes, both women who have worked actively in the field of women's rights, are joining us on the show. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on the broadcast. Sanju ji, I'll come to you first. The politics of vote bank has held hostage to the reform specifically of Muslim personal law. And I believe of all personal laws, if you go back to the history of the Hindu Code Bill, at different points, that same history, it's unfolding in front of our eyes. The position that has been taken by various opposition parties, including the Congress party, which has refused to take a position at this point in time, how do you see that move? And more importantly, the second limb of my question, it's a very emphatic and a decisive mandate that the Modi government has. And if UCC, despite these political problems, can become a reality, it is under the present term of the Modi government.
Anusha, I was listening into your interview with the Maulana, and first I have to say your Hindi quite impressed me. Coming to the more serious bit, I will, before I answer your questions, I think what I will read out now sort of encapsulates the core of this entire UCC debate. And I go back to 1985, when the current Chief Justice Chandrachud's father, Y.V. Chandrachud, was the CJI. And while calling for the need for a common civil code, a uniform civil code, he said that a uniform civil code will help the cause of national integration by removing disparate loyalties to law which have conflicting ideologies. Then he said it is a matter of regret that Article 44 has remained a dead letter. It should have been law long back. And Article 44, as we all know, stipulates that a uniform civil code shall be implemented throughout the territory of India, and the state shall endeavor to do so.
Yeah.
The other important judgment, before I come to the nub of your query, was the Sarla Mudgal versus the Union of India case in 1995, when the Supreme Court judge, Justice Kuldeep Singh, he actually said that it is time to bring out Article 44 out of the cold storage. It is unfortunate that Article 44 has been consigned to the dustbin of history. Uniform Civil Code is a must.
Yeah.
Imagine these were respected judges who spoke way back about the need for a Uniform Civil Code in 1985 and 1995, but you and me are still debating about it. I just have this to say, that the government has said that anyone, not only the stakeholders, but anyone, any citizen, bona fide citizen of India, can put forth his or her viewpoints to the Law Commission. The last date for doing so is 13th of July.
Okay.
So this allegation that the Modi government is not having a dialogue or a discussion and is trying to bulldoze its viewpoint, I think that's a whole lot of hogwash. And last but not the least, I will just say this. You know, before coming on your show, I did a bit of groundwork, Anusha, and I was stunned. Only for these 3 points, besides a whole host of other points, Uniform Civil Code is a must. I found out that adultery is a ground for divorce among Hindus, Christians and Parsis, but not for Muslims. Impotency is a ground of divorce for Hindus and Muslims, but not among Christians and Parsis.
Yes.
Similarly, underage marriage is a ground for divorce for Hindus, but not for Christians, Parsis and Muslims. I mean, look at the irony of this. I just say this, you know, I will not even say, oh, since we have one criminal law called the Indian Penal Code, why can't we have one Uniform Civil Code? My point is this. Are Muslims who are the one community, and I don't talk of progressive Muslims, because for instance, Zakia Suman, I've been on debates with her in the last couple of days. She's a highly progressive voice.
Okay.
But there are regressive Muslims who say that UCC aayega to Musalman barbad ho
No,
jayenge.
and in fact, there have been voices which have said that this is imposition of some kind of a Hindu law. That's going to come, and I think that's fear mongering. That's not valid. Saira Shah Halim, I want to come to you before I go to Zakia Soman and Flavia Agnes as well. Saira, how do you see the present move of the government? There are various critics of the government as well who argue that why did the government wait for all these years? And if the move had to be taken, why was it not taken earlier? Is this merely something which is being said before the elections? AIMIM, various other opposition parties have said this is a political bait. The government is not serious on the promise of the UCC. Your thoughts on this criticism? Saira.
Okay, firstly, good evening.
Good evening.
Well, the debate on the UCC is as old as the Constituent Assembly itself.
Indeed.
And it's very clear that it was desired. The founding fathers of our Constitution said this in unison, that this is not mandatory, however, it is desired. That is the reason it is in the directive principles of state policy. Secondly, Article 25 clearly says that religious freedom will be given to all groups, different social groups, religious groups in India to manage its own affair. It is very, very clear. Now, again, the point is, it's not about the minority community. I don't know why people are making it as if the Muslims are hammer and tongs against the UCC.
But Saira, can I make an interjection? Can I make an interjection?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think that's basic law, that if a Uniform Civil Code comes in, it's going to affect all religions, any kind of codes that exist, present laws as well that govern the Hindus and different communities. That being said, the most problematic aspect of personal laws is the Muslim personal law. We need to talk about it so that the reform can happen. If there is a personal law which has not been codified or has not been a subject of reform as much as any other personal law, it is the Muslim personal law, and we need to be able to talk about it openly so that the reform can happen in a constructive manner.
Yeah,
Saira.
so point here is about the priority. We have seen how Manipur is burning. Wouldn't it be more prudent to visit Manipur and ensure that, you know, the issues there, that this has led to so many violence and so many deaths, isn't that the burning issue, that those issues should be resolved? Or is it the Bharatiya Janata Party campaigning for 2024 elections? Because here, it is very clear, because if you look at the special tax status of the Hindu undivided families, the majority community will be very, very concerned about it. There are other things about inheritance, about the joint family, and so many other issues. And I think the Law Commission right now is seeking views on the Uniform Civil Code. We cannot really trust it upon a country as diverse as India, where every 100 kilometers, even the language and dialect changes.
Saira, I see what you're making. I see what you're making. Before I go to other guests, I want to ask you this, because you're you make these reasoned arguments, but I find a flaw there. Each time we talk about the reform of personal laws, it is said, look, there is a problem in that part of the country. Look, there is politics which is happening. I say all of that is true. It may be true, it may not be true. But you cannot deny that the reform of Muslim personal law has been pending and it needs to be taken up.
See, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
If the UCC is about easier adoption, I'm for it. If it is going to make the process of adoption and equal inheritance of women, I'm all for it. I'm all for any progressive law. But I'm against chaos, mayhem, and confusion, and the polarization that happens, because.
All right, I want to take Sanjay ji, I'll come back to you. I want to take opening arguments from everyone. I want to cut across to Zakia Soman as well. Zakia ji, why don't we deal with this issue head on? If there is a need for reform in any personal law, whether it's the Hindu personal law, Islamic personal law, or a Christian personal law, why are we so shy to talk about it? The politics of vote bank has held the reform hostage for decades now. Isn't it time to do away with it?
Thanks for having me, Anusha. We have been demanding codified Muslim family laws for the last almost 20 years.
Yes.
But nobody is listening to us. Neither the clergy, nor the politicians, nor the social leaders. Muslim women have been systematically kept out of the ambit of legal framework. It's as though all is well. That is the kind of stance which is adopted by the leadership. But in reality, if you see, Muslim women are suffering so many kinds of injustices, right from the age of marriage, right from the question of procedure of divorce, right from the question of polygamy, denial of custody and guardianship of children, denial of share in property, denial of Quranic rights such as consent and meher, and even, inheritance. So they have been at the mercy of interpretations by the clergy. The clergy has a very, large sections of the clergy have a very, very patriarchal mindset. They are caught up in the worldview that women are subordinate to men. This lies at the heart of the problem. Why the reform has not happened. Because the moment women demand justice, women demand rights, they feel that it endangers Sharia. Now, I don't understand, when the religion itself provides for gender justice, how does that translating into reality endanger Sharia and the religion? That question has to be asked of the Muslim clergy, and it is because of this. And there are two other reasons. The other fact is because it is Uniform Civil Code is part of the BJP's agenda. It's part of their manifesto. That these are the two primary reasons why it is perceived largely as a Muslim problem. But as you very rightly said in your introduction, because Muslim community is the only community which has not undergone any kinds of reform in the last 70 years. So that is at the heart of the problem. And it is high time.
What is very troublesome is that Islam was one of the first religion to grant women the property rights to the extent that the religion did ever since its inception. But the manner in which the conservative ideology has overtaken the religion, there are regressive interpretations of it, which we call as Sharia law in the country. Flavia Agnes, I want to come to you as well before I go back to the BJP for a reaction. You have often argued that when we talk about a uniform civil code, we need to ensure that we are cautious with this idea. Is there a caution that needs to be exercised when we toy with this idea?
I agree with this. There has to be a caution. And the BJP's motto or the aim seems to be very suspect. So that is what is the concern. Because the 2018 Law Commission report, 21st Law Commission's report, Reform Within Personal Law, it had all these things. There's nothing that was left out, in fact. And the government did nothing to implement it. Now, suddenly, just before election, they have come out saying, we need a UCC. I don't disagree with Zakia saying that Muslim law needs reform. All personal laws need reform. all personal laws are patriarchal. And we have to weed out all discrimination against women. I'm not saying all personal laws are great. And Zakia listed the hardship under women undergo under Muslim law. But even Christian women have hardships. Even Hindu women have hardships. Even other community women have hardships. Tribal communities have hardships.
But you know,
is this
ma'am, with due respect,
all of them?
ma'am, with due respect, the difference between the hardship of other communities versus the Muslim community is the fact that the hardship of Muslim community is some way sanctioned by law. Because these personal laws are protected under Indian Constitution, under the various judgments of the Supreme Court, and because they cannot be subjected to the tests of fundamental rights because of the judgment of Narasu Appamali. So that makes it an outlier in some ways. I want to cut across back to Sanju Verma. Sanju, a quick reaction from you. Yes.
You know, Anusha, first and foremost, thank you so much.
I have not finished, madam. I am in the halfway.
Oh my God.
Ma'am, I'll come back to you. Ma'am, I'll come back to you. Sanju, you make your point. I'll go back to Flavia Agnes and I'll take her comments as well. Finish your point.
Thank you. Yeah. Anusha, first and foremost, let me thank you for addressing the elephant in the room. Because I've been on the UCC debate in the last 72 hours on so many channels, and some of the anchors themselves have refused to address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that while the Uniform Civil Code will apply equally to Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, Christians, the reason why Muslims keep coming up in discussions is because who sanctions polygamy legally? It is the Muslim law. Who sanctions nikah halala legally? It is the Muslim law. Look at the Hindus. In 1829, we banned sati. In 1870, child marriage was banned amongst Hindus. In 1929, female infanticide was banned amongst Hindus and was made a punishable offense in 1978. Dowry was made a punishable offense for Hindus in 1961. So like I said, Hindus have actually progressed and reformed from the days of Manusmriti. But sorry to say, some regressive Muslims still have a Khilafat style mindset which is so 20th century and not 21st century. And just tell me one thing before I end, you know, what is the population of Muslims today? It is about 14.3% of India's total population at 140 crore. What is the population of Buddhists, Jains? Less than 0.5 or 0.2% of India's population. Christians about 1.8%. Sikhs about 1.6%. Jains about 0.34%. What I'm trying to say is, can I call Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, Zoroastrians, Sikhs, Christians as minorities? Certainly yes, because they account for less than 2% of India's population on a standalone basis. But Muslims accounting for 14% still cry, sulk, whine, play the victim card.
A section of them.
Muslim Samaj ko, you know, we are being persecuted. Just 10 seconds more.
Yes.
Each time a Muslim comes here and talks about Article 25, 26, let me remind them, Hindus don't get special benefits which Muslim community gets and minorities get under Article 20.
And ma'am, frankly speaking, if a uniform civil code comes in and the certain benefits of the majority community are taken away, so be it. I mean, that's something which is a constitutional mandate. I want to cut across back to Flavia Agnes. Flavia ji, a quick point from you and then I'll go back to Saira and Zakia Soman as well.
No, my point, in fact, I've lost the thread now because you interrupted me. But anyway, let me come here and say that when you say Hindu law got reformed, Hindu law got reformed, Hindu law got reformed, I've done a study of women who are killed in the matrimonial home, and out of 500 cases, about 3 or 4 were Muslims. The rest were all Hindus. So why are Hindu women killed in their homes? If everything is progressive in the Hindu law, can they deny it? Can they deny custom of dowry? Can you deny Kanyadan, where you offer a girl as a token to the husband? Can you deny Pati Parameshwar concept among the Hindus? Can you deny all this when so much reform is there? Why are Hindu women dying? Muslim women are divorced, I agree.
I just have one point to say. I have to go to the other guest as well. I was married in a Vedic ceremony, in a Hindu Vedic ceremony, and there was no Kanyadan. So a lot of things have come into our religion and become a part of the folklore and practice.
You may be. Even I got married
exactly.
That doesn't mean.
So nothing is, and it's not sanctioned in law. Kanyadan is not sanctioned in law. It's a practice which is not protected in law.
Polygamy is sanctioned in law.
I want to cut across to Zakia Soman and Saira Halim as well. Saira, please go ahead. Make your point.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that here we are very clear that, as far as the Indian constitution is concerned, it's not a constitution guarantee, nor is it a fundamental right. And as, the learned speaker just said, that we have a lot of social evils in all religions. Have we done away with female feticide? Have we done away with female infanticide? Have we done away with the dowry system? So, here, if you talk about religions, they are regressive practices that are very patriarchal and parochial in every religion. So then we need to do away with all superstitions. We need to do away with all malpractices.
Sarah, I agree with you. I agree with you. But can I make a point to you?
No, one second. A stick to beat the Muslim community.
No. I want to make that point to you as a learned person. I want to make that point to you. Let's say, for the sake of argument, there's a religious scripture in Hindu law that says that women need to be treated subordinate to men. And that particular scripture has not been overruled by any act, any statute, or by the constitution of the country, and it's prevalent, protected by Supreme Court judgments and various other provisions of the constitution, versus a practice which has been outlawed. All these things that you pointed out in various communities have been outlawed. What is being argued here is that certain social ills within the Muslim community are legally permissible. We need to make sure that they are not legally permissible. Sarah, please go ahead.
Didn't we do away with the triple talaq? Didn't we do away with the triple talaq? Didn't we do away with every draconian practice? So what I'm trying to say is that here, if you do something like we have seen how the farm laws were repealed just because a law was implemented without proper consultation, without taking the stakeholders into confidence, and it was implemented because it suited a certain political party and they were making a pitch for the election. Similarly here, the Law Commission has asked for advice and inputs, and I feel we should be very prudent at this point of time and ensure that everybody, including the AIMDP, including all other religious bodies of every community, their opinion should matter. And we cannot bulldoze a law. We cannot bulldoze a law upon the citizenry of India, because we have seen
and I remember, Sarah, last time when the Law Commission. When the Law Commission had given its recommendation, the All India, one second. The All India Muslim Personal Law Board and their opinion was taken. The opinions of everyone was taken. Sanjuji, before you come into the discussion, this is a point which is often made, and this is about the political honesty, intent, and the integrity with which this move is being taken up. What is being argued here is that this is just a poll plank. This is just a propaganda. You're not serious about the idea, or not, convinced about the idea of a uniform civil code in intellectual honesty.
Anusha, I just have this to say before I answer your query, because this, special rights that are given to Hindus under the HUF Act, that keeps coming up for discussion. So let me tell you that personal laws pertain to marriage, divorce, inheritance, guardianship, maintenance, so on and so forth. They don't apply to taxation. But hypothetically, assuming that they apply to taxation also, let me tell you that the HUF benefits are given to a particular individual. They are not given to an entire community. Point number one. Point number two, to avail HUF benefits, there are three important things that need to be adhered to. You have to trace your birth to a common ancestor. You have to be legally married. You have to have a legal offspring. And the fourth and most important, which people don't know, is that you have to be staying in India continuously for 730 days or more for the 7 years preceding the relevant year for which you're filing your tax returns. So please don't compare apples and watermelons by bringing in this HUF thing. Second point, I don't know, some panelists, mentioned about farm laws and Manipur violence, but this same panelist will not talk about the fact that a few days back, Shambhu Das, a poor BJP worker, was butchered to death in broad daylight at Dinhata in Cooch Behar. And it is not only the Kolkata High Court, but the Supreme Court has castigated Mamata Banerjee government, saying you have failed in maintaining law and order. If you can't maintain law and order, why don't you cancel the panchayat elections? So please don't sit here and give a bhashan to the BJP. If you speak about Manipur, have the audacity to talk about Bengal, which you don't. Last but not the least, people who say BJP is doing vote bank politics, unko main yaad dila do, and I will take only 20 seconds, Anusha. 31% of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana benefits go to Muslims. 37% of Mudra Yojana
All right.
benefits go to Muslims.
I have last few minutes on the show. A quick, I want to give Zakia Soman also the concluding arguments in this discussion. A quick point from you, Saira, and then I'll go back to Zakia Soman. Saira, quick point.
All I'm iterating once again that India is a country where the dialect changes every 100 kilometers. So how can we have the same set of rules for all communities? Every community has a different way of praying, performing rituals, conducting ceremonies like marriage. The freedom to practice one's faith and the way of life is granted to everyone by the Constitution. Again, I'm not saying that I'm against UCC. What I'm trying to say is that people in one area are not uniform. And if you implement any law in a hurry, it will affect all the communities. And here I'm not talking just about the minority communities. I'm saying if you implement any law and you don't take the stakeholders' account or their opinion or what they feel about it, it can really backfire.
Okay, I want Zakia Soman to have the last word into this discussion. Zakia ji, you, like many other eminent women on this panel, have worked for the rights of women for decades now. And I want to ask from you, because the reform of personal laws directly concern the life of women. You know, I find it appalling that Article 14, right to equality, is a fundamental right. It's one of the most important rights under Indian Constitution. Yet a huge chunk of women's life is governed by personal laws. Personal laws which are archaic in nature. Certain communities have got their due in the favor of reform, in the way of reform. Some have not. We need to talk about Muslim personal law. Is the moment right now? Zakia ji.
Definitely. And even the communities who have reformed personal laws, we see injustice happening to women because we are a male-dominated society. But that doesn't mean, that cannot be an excuse to deny Muslim women legal parity. So Muslim women are also citizens of India, and they are entitled to legal protection just like all other women. I will also say that the responsibility lies with the government to build a conducive climate towards a code which is very inclusive and which incorporates all the affirmative practices from all faiths and all backgrounds, and stands the test of the Constitution, which is about equality and justice, both gender justice and gender equality. So I think that should be the guiding principle, and all stakeholders, all voices should be listened.
Zakia ji, I'm sorry to interrupt, but isn't it utopian to expect that all stakeholders will be on the same page? When the Hindu Code Bill was being implemented, there were proponents of Hindu religion, the so-called proponents, who were against this kind of reform that was happening. So any conservative class from within any community is bound to resist these kind of reforms. To have a utopian perspective that everybody can be on the same table, is that really something we can ask for?
No, we must. Diversity is good, pluralism is good, but that does not mean that anybody has a right to discriminate against women. Nobody has a right to have misogynist practices in the name of diversity and pluralism. So that is a non-negotiable. That's why I'm saying at the heart of the code should be gender justice and gender equality.
This is about gender justice and gender equality. Article 14, the right to equality. Women should have it as much as men. And personal sphere of life, as the feminists argue, there is nothing personal about personal laws. I thank you all, you formidable women, for joining us on the broadcast for this wonderful discussion. UCC one day would be a reality in this country. At least that's what Dr. Ambedkar envisioned when he was drafting the Indian Constitution. We're slipping into a very short break. Up next on the other side, a fresh showdown in the state of Tamil Nadu after the governor sacked Senthil Balaji from the post of the minister, accusing him of obstructing the investigation. Is the governor authorized in his action? We'll talk about that story.